Diablo 4 has a stat problem. Let me give you guys a scenario. How many times have you cleared a dungeon, you go back to town, you've got a bag full of items, and you're sitting there looking at them and you spend 10 plus minutes trying to figure out what to sell and what is possibly an upgrade for you or not? Yeah, that's literally me every single dungeon, every single time. Like many of you guys, I have spent countless hours playing this game since its release. And at first, I thought the new way that they were doing stats and itemization with this game was actually kind of cool. But the longer I've played, the more and more I'm starting to realize there is a huge glaring issue with that. So in this video, we're going to be talking about why stats or itemization in this game is bad, and how I think Blizzard can possibly fix this. So like many of you guys, I've spent a ton of time in this game since it came out, and for the most part, I've been having a lot of fun. This game is pretty great, and I think it's got legs. I think this game is going to, be around for a while, so long as Blizzard makes sure to keep adding seasonal content, and the seasons are fun, and they make sure that they're adding new kind of fun mechanics and systems to the game. But the more and more I play this game, the more and more I'm starting to have an issue with stats and just itemization in general. When I first started playing, when I started seeing stats showing up on gear, things like, damage to far enemies, damage to near enemies, vulnerable damage, overpowered damage, things like that. At first I was like, okay, this is new, this is interesting, let's see how this plays out. But now as I've played more and more of the game, I'm starting to realize that these new kind of stats just don't translate very well to the average user. I like to think that I'm a pretty smart guy, at least that's what my mom tells me. I feel like I'm spending way more time trying to figure out if a piece of gear is an upgrade for me or not. I'm spending more and more time staring at my bags, trying to solve some kind of puzzle. I feel like I'm Tom Hanks in the Da Vinci Code, trying to find out the meaning of life while I'm staring at the stats on this gear, when I should just be playing the game and having fun. In my opinion, when you're looking at gear, you should almost instantly be able to kind of figure out if something is an upgrade for you or not, and unfortunately, we just don't have that right now. Now, granted, I'm sure as more time goes by and people will play the game longer and longer, they'll start to, get better at that and, figure out if something is an upgrade for them faster. But right now, it doesn't feel right. And I know the pretty apparent solution to this problem is probably the most boring, but I feel like it's actually better than what they tried to do. And that's just going back to just plain old boring stats. You remember the days back when you would, play an RPG and you'd get a new piece of gear and you'd look at it and it would just have things like plus 15 dexterity, plus 14 stamina, 2% crit chance, crit damage, life on hit, things like that. I think we should go back to that. And I know that sounds really boring and kind of lame, and I get Blizzard was trying to do something different this time around, trying to add, more interesting kind of stats to gear, but I just don't think it translates very well. Sure, I get people looking at gear right now and they're like, okay, vulnerable damage, yeah, I get that. That's what I want to stack on my gear. But let me ask you guys a question, be honest. How many of you guys know what overpowered damage does? How many of you guys know what lucky hit does? If you're playing a rogue, do you guys know what cutthroat damage is? I feel like the stats in this game are just really confusing. Maybe Blizzard could have done a better job with introducing us to all these different stats and, what they do. I don't know, maybe they could have added some kind of tutorial mission where it goes over all the stats or things like that. Or maybe they just could have included that in the tooltip when you mouse over things. But either way, I think the best solution for this issue is to not totally just revamp the stats. Obviously there are some pretty interesting ones in here that I think would be fine to keep into the game, but I do think that there are quite a few different stats or attributes that they really just gotta get rid of. For example, I think damage to distant enemies, damage to slow enemies, and damage to close enemies or near enemies need to just be removed. I think these are just boring, and I feel like they take up space for really more interesting stats. Or another option I think what would be kind of interesting for them to do is maybe add some kind of tooltip or frame that kind of pops up after you hover over an item for a while that will kind of show you the increase to, what that thing might give you. For example, let's say you pull up an item that's got, damage to distant enemies. Maybe a box will pop up and it'll show yeah, these abilities will benefit from this spell or, this thing, whatever. Because right now to figure out what skills you're stacking right now on your items, you literally have to click, materials and stats and then scroll down. It's just, I feel like on the user interface side of things, that's just really unintuitive and it's just really frustrating. But either way, I just wanted to get my thoughts out there and kind of just talk about what my issues with this game are so far. Maybe I'm totally off base, and you guys are more than welcome to let me know how wrong I am in the comments. If you guys enjoyed this video, let me know by leaving a like on it and subscribing to the channel if you're new here and you guys enjoy my Diablo 4 content so far, which I plan to be making a lot more content in the future alongside of World of Warcraft, because I think going forward, WoW and Diablo 4 are going to be kind of my two main games for a while. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for checking out my video, and with that, I will see you guys next time.